By the time the sky began to brighten on his first morning alone, Crane's driftwood fire was down to orange embers. He squatted close, trying to warm his hands, yet mindful not to scorch his parachute. Mercifully, there was almost no wind. Even the high, thin fingers at the tips of the spruce were still. Cold and dry air can carry sounds well over long distances, but there was nothing to be heard. This was a deeper silence than anything Crane had known. He became aware of his own internal hum. He could make out the soft, steady static of his inner ear. The sound reminded him of the shells he pressed to his ears during boyhood trips to the Jersey Shore. It was reassuring, a sound of life and memory. He made it through the night. That alone seemed an accomplishment. There was something else, however, embedded within the awesome quiet. It somehow had its own special gravity, a force he hadn't really encountered before. The silence pressed on him, humbled him. It draws out honesty better than any truth serum. Crane again ran through the odds of rescue. They certainly were no better than the day before. Without a last-minute radio call, Ladd's rescue planners would have no idea where to send the planes. They would, of course, circle over Big Delta, the location of the plane's last contact with Ladd. But they might as well be looking in Siberia. Crane was well off to the northeast, even if he didn't know exactly how far. And what if search planes never came? What were the chances of survival then? It looked bleak from any angle. Start, Crane told himself, with the positives. It wasn't all grim. On the plus side, he had matches and the parachute. And don't forget, silk is an excellent insulating material and handles the deep cold well. His parka was in good condition, and the mucklucks so far kept his feet warm. There, too, was no problem with water. Even at the sub-zero temperatures, it gurgled up from fissures in the river ice. This was enough to keep him alive for a while. He also was in reasonably good shape except for his hands. Crane wiggled his toes. They were still nimble and warm enough. But how long, he asked himself, would that last? For whatever reason, the radio operator Wenz hadn't indicated their heading from Big Delta in his last transmission to Ladd. And, in another baffling oversight, he had failed to make another call. Protocol was for radio contact at least every 30 minutes. If Wenz had kept to the schedule, there would have been a call to Ladd just before the B-24 went into its spin. Even if the plane was out of range, the message might have been heard at Big Delta. But clearly, something must have happened to keep Wenz from making the radio call. Crane knew enough of Wenz to consider him deeply reliable. At 31 years old, Wenz was by far the oldest member of the crew. He had a 9-year-old daughter back in his native Nebraska. Even though the marriage didn't take, Wenz made arrangements to have some of his military pay put aside for his child. Wenz also was well aware of what it meant to be out of reach for help in the wilderness. Before coming to Alaska, Wenz spent time in Pinedale, Wyoming, not far from Jackson Hole. He opened a barber shop with his brother. In his time off, he was drawn to the solitude of the Rockies. Wenz hiked alone into the mountains and camped for a week or more. Relatives remember him playing with chipmunks and his curious choice of adopting a pet badger. Crane figured that if Wenz could have made one last radio call, he would have. Something happened to him, Crane guessed. It couldn't be good.